Welcome to Asambe. Cameron, so excited to have you here.
No.
You're the first member, as we say, first guest for this podcast. And in our first episode, we were just introducing Asambe, which means let's go. And the initiative is very much around youth unemployment and inviting youth towards these career fields that they may not know about, or they know about, but they want to know more deeper about it through the people who do that work every day.
Yeah.
So for context,
yes.
Cameron is a tour guide, and you said you got into this kind of by accident.
Absolutely. And just before chat, I love supporting you guys because you were some of the earlier supporters of my tours, so it's a nice quid pro quo in that way. I got into it by accident because I never wanted to be a tour guide in terms of we associate tourism with being like the hospitality industry of playing host to people, and like Cape Town is one of Cape Town's biggest industries is tourism, and I never wanted to become that kind of tour guide. I wanted to be someone who shared South African stories with South Africans, and I still think of myself as that person. It's lovely to make a living and make a career out of it through traditional tourism, but week to week, my job is walking around the city, teaching Capetonians about their history. So,
which is such a big thing in my
It
view.
is, yeah.
I was stalking you a bit, and I read that you're a Rhodes Mandela Scholar. Is that correct?
yeah, absolutely. So if people don't know, maybe people have heard of the Rhodes Scholarships, but there is a local version of it for African students. It's provided more than 2,000 people across Africa with a chance to study in South Africa. And I got it in 2017 and studied screenwriting. And my main love is film, screenwriting, storytelling, but it's a lovely thing to make a living as a storyteller no matter what, you know. So I will get into that industry. I am like working on a screenplay project now, but whatever way you can find to make storytelling your life, I feel like you can do it. And I feel like I'm living proof of that, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel like one of the most unique things about your tours that we really enjoyed was exactly what you just said, the storytelling, because you take us through a suburb, but it actually feels like you're going back in time and learning about, I remember the gardens one, you said at some point where the company gardens is now was just like forest and there was no people living and things.
Well, I think people take so many things for granted, especially in a place like Cape Town. Like the best museum, the city itself. You know what I mean? Like the spaces you walk through are always the spaces which everyone walked through for 400 years. And if you live in the UK or so many other places around the world, there's like a cult of history around belonging to a place means like having a plaque on every building and that kind of thing. And for many reasons in Cape Town, South Africa, we don't do that. Or if we do it, we ignore the things that are there, or we need someone to show them for us. So especially in Cape Town, where we need to imagine what like a pre-colonial city was, what it was at different eras of colonialism, what it could be in a future era that's properly post-colonial. Like we need to have that imagination, and the only way to do that is to say it was different in the past, it will be different again in the future, you know. So, and that's part of the thing for me is teaching people how, you know, the world they have is not the world as it always was, you know.
Yeah, I'm an urban planner by profession. I've often seen cities evolve so much pre-World War, post-World War, with the advent of cars. And like you said, I think people, I myself included, struggle to imagine a future where things could be different.
Yes,
But they will be different, like you said. So I know that everyone in the world right now wears multiple hats. What are your hats?
What are they? I struggle to keep count, actually. Well, I'm working on a screenplay project, and I'm working partly with VoiceMap, who are an audio guides to cities thing, who started in Cape Town about 14 years ago by a man named Ian Manley, and they've expanded to 400 cities around the world. And I won a commission to do a tour of them. So I'm balancing the day job of working for the free walking tours, welcoming tourists to the city with writing and designing this voice map audio thing, which is lovely because it makes what I do more permanent. And it's what it means is that tourists who arrive in the city can download a guided audio tour, and it will be for years to come, they can listen to my voice, which, if I was an egotistical person, I would enjoy. Luckily, I'm not. But yeah, it's fun to make something that's been a lovely job for a long time into something more permanent, and to link that to my love of film and kind of storytelling more generally. And I'm working on a screenplay project with my flatmate. It's kind of like True Detective set in the West Coast, Probably produced by Star Films of Johannesburg, who just produced our Oscar nominee, the Heart is a Muscle. That's what we put forward as our potential nomination for the Oscars. So I've everything happens at once, doesn't it? If you have, if you want to do three things in your life, you end up getting the break in all three at the same time, So hopefully it'll all come together. Hopefully it'll all succeed, and hopefully I make deadlines for once in my life, But yeah, those are the main things I'm busy with at the moment.
And why, sorry, before Saleha comes in, I mean, many people often go into a formal job, a formal
Yeah.
set of job, like or something like that. I'm always so inspired by people who don't do that.
Yeah,
because
find
I've
another
not done
way,
that.
yeah.
What led to that decision of not going for an 8 to 5 job?
I think it's partly just my own failure to exist within certain disciplines. I have Asperger syndrome, which is, I don't think people use that anymore as a term for it, but I'm on the autistic spectrum, and it's like, it's at a certain level, it's like, obviously you can kind of transcend it and connect with people fundamentally. It doesn't have to define you, but it also means that you constantly end up running into the same issues in your own behavior, in your own discipline, and I worked at University of Cape Town, I worked in other teaching jobs, and I loved it, but I was not adapted to the institutions, and I constantly felt like I was letting people down, and that through different things, and I've realized I don't make my own where I can completely set my own time and feel completely responsible for the work. Then I'll go along feeling guilty putting into a bigger institution, And so I think that's the thing, is like people who look successful in whatever way of like having made their own thing, whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're these extremely qualified, wonderful people. They're trying to find the niche for them, and yeah, it's I think a lot more young people know, like, the dream of becoming podcasters, YouTubers, becoming part of the media, or in some way making a thing for yourself. But I think often, like, the idea we have of what you can do is too narrow, because you're flooding a market. There are big new markets in the world, but there's such a rush to fill them that don't stop to think what makes me distinctive, what makes that thing that I can offer, and because people want to go the broadest audience possible, and that if everyone's going for the broadest audience, no one gets anything, except for the biggest players in the game, So yeah, for me, it's like how I connect that is I got into my tour business, and that was no one is doing what I'm doing. No one is doing a weekly like walkthrough of neighborhoods that connects with the people who live in the neighborhoods about their histories. That's affordable. That's approachable for people, for Capetonians, and people don't think that people who live in the city have the curiosity that they do about the place they live in. And so you've got to like just have a leap of faith and be like because no one else is doing it doesn't mean that there isn't demand for it. It just means that it has been presented in a way that people will actually love and be interested in.
But it must not have been something that picked up immediately. I can imagine anything that is new in the market takes a while it takes persistence and it takes hard work.
Absolutely. It definitely does. And I think it's you've got to sustain your own passion. Whatever it is you're in, it's not like I'm doing until it breaks, until it succeeds, whatever. It's got to be like I'm doing this because I'm growing through doing it. And then you'll be surprised because it will happen by accident, and also like the marketing for it. Like sometimes you have a good thing and you don't necessarily know how to get it out to people, or you think you have to use like funded ads or that kind of thing, but ultimately it will take a bit of tinkering to find the way in which you can properly popularize the thing that you're doing. Like for me, I wanted it to be community based, so I was like, okay, where do people see local events? And most often people see events on WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, Instagram Reels, so forth like that. And so if I persistently post groups with high quality content, like people, it'll stand out. It'll be upgraded, you know, like, and that's the thing. People feel like you can only flood people's feeds, and that's the only way you can get something advertised, or you've got to have a lot of money. It's like, no, just work on the quality of the thing that you're promoting, and then put it in a public forum where people will pay more attention to it because someone cared for it more. So in that way, marketing and promoting of like writing a good introduction, a good description of what you're offering. From that, even if it's getting a friend to consult with you because you're not a good writer or whatever, like just presentation is everything in that. People judge books by their covers all the time, like, and they're not wrong to, you know.
Yeah.
But if you get that right, it will build by itself. And word of mouth rarely matters. Like for my tours, word of mouth has kept me going for years. Like I know it'll always pick up again. Or people always look for my schedule of tours and that kind of thing because they've been meaning to do it for ages, or you know what I mean. So yeah, building word of mouth through good, high descriptions of your content and finding the right place to post or share it that will take a while, even after starting. But once you get there, you'll be amazed at how many people are aware of what you're doing. You know.
This is like marketing 101.
Yeah, honestly.
There's a very good points there.
Tell us about books. You mentioned.
Yeah.
You're reading one right now.
Yeah.
You came in and you opened this
The book
book.
immediately. Well, I was, you know that ABBA song, "Thank You for the Music." You know, it's like I was a singer before I could talk, kind of thing. It's like I was a reader before I could, you know, walk and so forth. You know,
Very cool.
It's great. I think I don't know. I do have part of the autism, I think, is like an ability to focus on things that other people don't focus on. And it makes me incredibly sad to realize how many people want to read, but feel like their attention spans of the way we live our lives today stops them from doing it or has made them disconnected from it and that. But I think reading is like working out or like or exercising. It's exactly for your brain what is for your body, you know, and I think my tours is partly to kind of cover fundamental exercise, like to give people something that's both something that works in their mind and their body at the same time, because again, there's very little of that. But yeah, reading as in like, I think people feel, especially with ChatGPT and especially with the internet as it exists, that the internet is unlimited and everything that they can about a place or thing is on there, and that's they'll go to. But the more I just go to libraries, the more I collect my personal home library. I have like 5 bookshelves in my room, and 2 in the lounge, and that the more I realize like there's just treasure in old books and that. And that's for you to find out, and that's for you to bring to other people, So it's not just in my thing of loving history. I'm sure anyone who loves any big body of knowledge or loves their profession, it doesn't realize how much they could develop if they just kept a little bit of a reading list going about that thing, So yeah, that's what I think reading adds. It's like, it's not fun for you, it's fun for, you don't realize that that's a treasure you can give to other people,
I want to touch on 2 points that I've really got on. One is the autistic part, and the second part is what I'm hearing is doing small things at small times, and then that builds, right?
Yeah.
Let me touch on the first part, and this part I'll go to Saleha because, the first part I need support from Saleha, and then the second part is the one where I really want to touch on because I have good experience struggling with that. So the first part is autism. Saleha's brother has autism and he struggles with some of these things. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there are so many neurodivergent people that are listening to this. And this has become so clear now in our lives now that neurodivergency is there. Saleha and I always discuss that we have ADHD in some case or the other.
Yeah.
And now we are coming to know about it. But what I've heard from you as well, it's a strength.
Yeah.
It's a strength. You can the strength and then towards your career. And I really want to discuss that. I really want to unpack that. Saleha, I don't know, you always speak about this with me and you articulate it so well.
I feel like we live in a neuronormative world.
Yeah.
So it's like how the world was made for men. It's the same way that the world was made for neuronormative people.
Yeah.
Or fully abled people.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool that we're in this place in time where people who are on the spectrum can make space for themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Through podcasts and through everything else. Yeah. I think that there's always been a way in which, on the spectrum have have found their positions. I think like my secret theory is that academia is basically that in a way, like, you know, or scholasticism, like people withdrawing from the world to focus on the things that they love, you know. We've always found our way, and
That's
I think
such a good point. Just
Yeah.
I think the same thing.
well, that's not like I am an academic, but in my soul, you know, like, but that's partly why I don't want to be in academia, is I want to be in the world in a different way, you know. And yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that, you know, it's that exactly that thing of like strengths and weaknesses go together. Like it's the same thing in our current world, where simultaneously the world is more, the media is more diffuse. There's like less of a monoculture. People like have their audiences, their connection, but also allows space for people to be accepted and you know, and cultivate themselves in a way that they didn't before. But at the same time, it's like, you know, there isn't, you still want this kind of mainstream acceptance. You want general public to kind of accepting, but the idea of what we have as a general public is difficult. You know, who are we directing that to? You know, so the thing is, like, for me, what being autistic or being on the spectrum means is I have a power of passion and love for something, and a skill to go with it, like memory and focus, and keeping a lot of big narratives in my head at the same time. That like it does feel like a gift, not just as in like, oh, I'm gifted and I can give that to you, but as in like I was given something, and I can always draw on it for my self-esteem, for my own mental health, for that kind of thing going forward. It's still very difficult. I have mental health issues like anyone, but like if you can give that to people feel seen, because they'll see like, oh, like it doesn't matter if I rarely connect with this thing that this person is fascinated with. What matters is that they give me license to love and connect with the thing that I care for, you know, and I can go as far into it as possible without like, I was talking to a friend the other day about like going to movies by yourself, and that like, I've gone to movies by myself for as long as I could, because I love movies for that. Like I don't need anyone else's excuse to have a relationship with cinema, with film, you know. I think a lot of people feel like that, like if they're neuronormative or whatever, that they need an excuse or that to indulge like their personal relationship with something that's not a person, that is something bigger than themselves in that way. And that's sad, because you know there's so much freedom in that, and I hope that culture pivots to allow people to do that more, because I think we kind of cast people like that as being like, or you know, people who, like, you know, the people who are gamers or whatever, like that's our prototype for that kind of obsession. It's like, no, like architects, nature lovers, hikers, the most outgoing people in the world have that same focus and love and attention for that thing. We just don't cast their behavior as being we don't condescend to it, you know, in the same way as we condescend to other things, you know. So I wish that there was more of a sense of awareness of like, of how freeing be to indulge you for something based on like a gift you were given, you know. So I think most people have it, they're just afraid to rarely follow it because they're afraid it might isolate them. And don't be afraid of isolation. We're already isolated in a lot of ways. So your isolation can be a way of connecting with other people in a better way than you thought you could, you know.
The second thing I wanted to touch base on, so actually before I go into that, you have a superpower. Your superpower allows you to concentrate on things, go into your passion. And just as I'm speaking to you right now, I feel like I haven't realized my passion, which is something I want to explore now, this conversation that we're having. But I've been trying for the past year, I think, to write more. Yeah. I love writing. I've struggled to write. I've struggled to keep up with writing, rather, right? I enjoy it. I do it in my job, but I struggle to do it for the things that I'm passionate about and writing about, that I'm excited about. So a question to you is, let's say you had to give advice to someone about keeping something, a habit, keeping a schedule. What would it be? What would it be? Like you say, like exercising is a muscle, reading is a muscle. What would that be? What would that look like? And giving advice to me.
Yeah, to you. Cool. Well, it is always personal as well as general, isn't it? You know? Look, I need to hear this from myself as much as anyone. Like, firstly, the thing I've realized recently is if you have an issue like that if you should probably try and find the right medication for it. I have found this recently. I'm on generic Ritalin for the first time in my life because I didn't think I had ADHD, and this is like literally in the last month, and it has completely changed my life, like in exactly the right way. I kind of back myself. Like, firstly, like I have a friend who is worried about going on medication and that, and I'm like, I almost want to scream at them, like you don't know, but you know, like it's a personal thing you have to overcome. Yeah. So one thing, it's like, but that's not an answer to what you're saying. The answer to what you're saying is, like, the thing I always go back to is Jimmy's had a guitar in his hand at all times, in the months, in like the weeks or so he died. I saw this in a documentary. He was seen without his guitar at a party. People were worried for him. It's like, what? Like, where's the guitar? You know? And I always thought like, oh, that is it. Like, just the person who loves the thing and is amazing at it is just always doing it. Like, not at the level of like making time for it, but just like I always have 2 or 3 books on me. Like, I always, like, I don't write as much as I want to. Same thing as well, you know. And also I do a job where I do a lot of writing and I get as much personal expression as I can out of it. But at the same time, like I know that it's also distracting me from the kind of writing that both of us want to do. Just that thing of like the most practical thing is like carry a notebook in your hand at all times. Like, if it is to hand, you will do it more. And like that, changing that behavior of like, you know, not having a super ego thing about saying like I should do this more or whatever, but just being like, oh, it's there, like let me do that now, you know. It's like even like I've gone to an exercise routine recently, like just like having the weights like in my room staring at me, you know, like that's, yeah, project the pressure from yourself onto the thing itself, like the most practical thing I can say. And otherwise, like scheduling and that comes later, like having a good calendar or whatever, but like that is the most immediate advice. If you love something enough, just surround yourself with it and let it be the thing, the partner in life, just as much as you want to be around the person you love. Like the thing, you know, make sure that that thing is around you in whatever way.
So basically, not out of sight, not out of mind.
Yeah, exactly. Inside in mind.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So if back to your job, if you had to give advice to somebody who wanted to start this today, what would you tell them? Do they need formal training? How do they start? How do they get into this?
Well, I didn't do formal training as a tour guide for a year. I just started it in terms of like it was based because I knew it was illegal to do tours from that. So, but I think that's a funny thing is like I'm not saying become a bootleg version of your thing. I'm saying that like you don't, at a certain level you need permission to do something professionally, as in registration, as in licensing, whatever. But you know, if you present yourself as doing something, you're training for it, or you're trying out whatever, as long as you frame it well enough, people will support you, you know. And also if you show enough dedication, enough discipline at first, like there's a kind of residual like amount that you have to show. You can't like pretend that you're, you know, like, oh, I'm still training. It's like, no, you got to take it seriously as if it's your job from the beginning. But you can also give yourself the grace to say, like, you know, like for me, it's like one of the weird things with tour guiding is that you kind of get a diplomat's training. Like you wear a South African flag badge, and you have a part of it that's about like, you know, if you disagree with someone politically, like, and I think that's interesting. It's kind of like you know, how you have to have medical training as well. You have to go a first aid course and that kind of thing. It all goes together because you're like, you are, for most people who will only come to your country or your city once in their lives, the main person that they will interact with that gives them an impression of what that country is you. And like realizing that that's the extra training that goes with it, not just remembering facts, not just being a hospitable and nice person, but understanding that you're representing something. Like that's what the licensing is, and that's what it's for. That's why you have to be registered, because you know, ultimately South Africa is responsible for the people who represent her as a country as tour guides, you know. So, and that's just in my profession. Obviously it goes with lots of other things, but yeah, for someone getting into tour guiding or getting what I do, obviously read a lot and fall in love with South African history to the point where you're like, you want to just tell your friends the things that you would tell tourists. So like, don't see it as like, oh, I gotta memorize all this. Be like, I always think it's like, treat history like it's a conspiracy. Like, oh, this is because of this, and then, oh yeah. That's how you build your curiosity, and then, yeah, don't be able to do an informal version of your job for a while and find whatever excuse you can do to do that. And if that means using it as an excuse to enlist your friends to go on your tours or your thing, but just esteem matters with doing it, and the best way to build your self-esteem is to enlist around you to that you trust to do an informal version of your job with you. I didn't have strangers on my tours until the fourth, fifth tour. Like it was the first 3 or 4 tours were friends who I'd advertised it to. I said like, I'm doing this, come support, So, and then when I had strangers, like, okay, cool. Are they gonna be friends now? So yeah. Also, that last thing there is like, don't be afraid to have, especially if it's your job or that, like you can go from having it be very intimate and personal and like kind of treating each client as just another person to being like, oh, this is a proper job now where I'm processing people. Like, I've got this booking system and I'm putting on a personality to connect with them, so like it can be hard when it's your job and your business to separate yourself from that, but if you learn how to transition, it might take a year, it might take 2 years, but it's an amazing thing to see yourself growing into that professional personality, and it feels so much more authentic than doing it for a bigger institution, so, and I think that's an answer to the question, is authenticity, like of like if your authentic self quite in another institution, then you will have to create something for yourself and that works for you.
Wow, that's really cool. I think, okay, so I was reading a book recently and it was essentially about how everything in your life is a sale,
I
right?
was going to bring up that same book. I was bringing
Which
up the
book
same
is it?
book.
To sell or be sold, I think.
But that's a very capitalistic view
Yes,
of the world.
no,
We can learn a lot from capitalism.
Yes, we can.
But I think why I bring that up is because when tours, like I said before, it is a story you're telling, right? And
Yeah.
some would almost think of it as selling to tourists
Yeah.
South Africa as a country, or the suburb, or
Yeah.
whatever the tour is. And we have attended tours where, I mean, there was one where we attended when we said we're from Cape Town. He was completely thrown off because he had a specific narrative that he wanted to share. And how do you deal with kind of the history of South Africa is very
Vibrant.
Hard to
checkered.
sell sometimes.
Yes, yeah.
Vibrant is the word, you can use that. Means good and bad. No, I completely get that. I'm still learning how to do that. Like as a tour guide, that's the thing that keeps you. You will never find an answer to that properly, because you will always be hit by the disjunction of like, how do you talk about a place that everything and care about to people who it's just one of the many countries that they've
Yes.
gone to, And there's a part of it, like to be absolutely honest, as a tour guide, you kind of resent like maybe some tour guides, not everyone, like maybe me and like other tour guides. We resent the way in which South Africa gets cast as just another country or that, because I don't think we are. And I think to be a tour guide, you have to have a little bit of South African exceptionalism, that idea of like, I always say that we're like a funhouse mirror of America. Like we have the same, the kind of like self-obsession at a certain level that Americans have. And we have the same diversity and the same sense of having great ideals and the same sense of being like, a country that other countries can look to. But at the same time, like our problems are the worst problems. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, and then you realize on the world stage, people are like, oh, country has huge problems. Like, oh, I just came from Indonesia that also has big problems. You know? And that decentering is very important. And I think for me, like the best way to do it is to spend part of your life outside South Africa in whatever way. Like I feel sorry for my generation who feel like there's this implicit choice of like you leave or you stay. And like I'm lucky where I have family in the UK, and I've traveled a lot when I was younger and that. But I think fundamentally, like I'm like, not to back myself completely here, but the best life, in my opinion, completely is one in which you can still keep your ties to South Africa, as in spend much of the year here, and that, but also have enough perspective and go away, not just to travel, but to stay in another place for a month or two, or whatever, and I do have that at the moment. And the reason why that's important is that keeps your space in context and keeps you fundamentally aware of what is special about the place you live in. And like, can't travel, then read the news from other countries like that, because like, especially living kind of on off in the UK over the last 10 years, like if there's any place that makes you aware the grass is not greener on the other side of the UK, like it's a lovely place, lovely opportunities, so much to do, but the way that they think of themselves and the way that and the problems they're facing as a country are problems that for me like are darker and speak to less like trust and faith in themselves as people than South Africans have faith in themselves. Like I think we cast ourselves down. We have many problems that we will probably never solve, but we do think of each other with a certain amount of respect and love, and like ordinary South Africans with each other, and I think that's so special and precious, and it's something which I always feel whenever I get back from abroad. I'm like, like here's a place where people actually like we're counting on each other.
Yeah.
And that leap of faith is important. So to go to the original question, like perspective is the thing that matters, and however you can get it, allows you to speak to tourists as if you're one of them, or coming back to the country, seeing it from outside, and also being an insider, speaking to Capetonians. And I love enlisting Capetonians on my tours to talk, because, it's like, it's hard to get tourists talking, like, because you want them to engage and you want them to enjoy the experience. You don't want to feel like you're just lecturing to them about South African history, because that's not a good tour. But at the same time, the people, it's nice to be a little bit controversial every now and again to get a Capetonian to be like, no, actually, like, and you say, oh, you're kind of prodding them or playing with them a little bit. So yeah, don't be afraid to kind of be a little bit less serious in that regard, Yeah, that's my answer.
So that brings about a question around confidence, but I want to narrate two stories, right?
Yeah.
Salah and I visited Spain during our honeymoon in 2022. And it was such an interesting experience. Saleha, wherever she went, she would ask the person at the counter in Spain, how are you? And that person was baffled that she was asking this. Why? And one person said, yeah, I'm fine. And
what do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that? And I remember the minute we landed and came back and she asked someone, how are you? And they were like, I'm fine, thanks. How are you? And it was such a normal, warm experience.
Yeah.
We are such warm people. We are so kind. But there is also that second part that I find very interesting. In my day job, I work with municipalities, which is helping them build capacity so that they can govern better, they can reach people better. And I know, so one of the aspects where I work in quite closely is trying to bring funding towards that municipality that they can use external funding to do work. And there was this funny experience with one municipality that they would always accept everything they got. They just said yes to everything.
Yeah,
right?
All funding.
All funding, because they felt, in a way, there was also that imposter syndrome in a way, that, what, someone else knows better about our problems than we do.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
In a long way, I've now reached to the question that there's a confidence issue that we also have towards. I know I have it, imposter syndrome. And the big question is always, can I do this?
Yeah.
I know I have the skills, but I doubt myself consistently, And you talked about mental health, and I'm sure those are those aspects as well. But how do you deal with that on that front as well?
In your job, or
in your job, that you're like, you know what, I'm gonna create myself.
Yeah.
I'm gonna enough to be able to make a living as well.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna follow my passion. Those are all important aspects.
Absolutely. I think that maybe I'm not the right person to ask about that, in terms of I've always had confidence. Like, for as long as I've been reading, I've always like had more information or more things to share than other people. So I've never doubted my ability to that. I think the value of that to people, you can doubt a little bit. Like, I think we live in a world that's like a lot of information, and so there I changed frame. I was, okay, but I need to learn how to curate information and bring that together for other people. And that's the storytelling thing of people will forget instantly any data, any statistics, any dates, whatever you give them. To remember them because that's your story, but like the meaning of what you're talking about, of like this is what happened, this is what it is, and I think like that's difficult, and that you're always building on. Like, for me, the big example is like the story I want to tell about Cape Town, about South Africa, is about a place where transformation is real and can be seen in almost every neighborhood and every place. Like, at the most micro level, you can see unbelievable transformations that once you learn about them, enchant you and fascinate you. And also, fundamentally, like I went to UCT during Rhodes Must Fall and Peace Must Fall, and like the big thing there was the great political question was, how do we move forward? Do we have to destroy the past in order to move forward? And there was a part of me that was like, yes, absolutely. We do need to take down statues that are in the wrong place, that kind of thing. But for me, the greatest thing we've achieved as South Africans is to understand that the country can be reimagined and spaces that meant one thing can now mean a different thing today. So like I always point out the Company Gardens, which you guys did, that the Company Gardens was made for purely colonial reasons as a vegetable garden for ships crossing the world. Cape Town existed not for South Africa, not for Africa, but as a stopover on to the other side of the world. And to reframe the city as being for the people who live here, for visitors from afar, but also for Africa, and to be this beacon in South Africa, that is happening. That is like happening right now. And that's the first time it's happening for nearly 400 years. The excitement of that, of like this narrative is changing, whether you're a part of it or not, and that the narrative goes down to like a public park in the center of the CBD, how the story of that park has changed. Like you connect the smallest thing to the biggest thing at the same time. So yeah, that storytelling of like, the reason why I point that out is like, I feel like I can convince them, even if they don't love information, if they don't like going on tours of that I can connect something about their lives and their experience to that story. And so learning to find confidence in those stories, or that's what matters, So to answer your question, that I find confidence through finding something that I feel connects to everyone in what I do. And that it can take a while to get there, ages. But once you do that, you feel like you're in the right. It's I imagine I always joke, it's like being a preacher. Like you just, if you believe in your religion, you've seen your religion is connected with other people, like you will always rate that with other people, So having a bit of a missionary faith is part of it, Doesn't matter if you're religious or not, of course.
Very cool. Okay, so I think my last question would probably be, what does a day in your life look like typically?
Pure chaos, I think. I'm definitely getting better at scheduling. I think an average day I'll do like a tour or do a shift to the free walking tours. It'll be 3 or 4 tours. I will be scheduling tours forward. I will always do a promotion every day for a tour, either this weekend or that, and that's just an Instagram post with pictures of the place that I'm touring with, and just sharing reviews of my tours. Like I think fundamentally, like that's also confidence, is like get reviews, not just get friends help, but like if you don't believe you're good, get other people to say you're good, that you trust, who aren't going to tell you the wrong things, and yeah, I feel like I have a formula for that, of like on social media I do that. I need to look more, but yeah, like that's what I do every day as discipline, is I'll do a piece of social media, and the thing grows by itself. Like every now and again you'll do a media appearance. Like I hosted Cape Town magazines at weekend. I did a few things like that, and then you'll get like 500 more followers or suddenly. But just consistency is what matters more than anything, because people will remember you if you keep showing up. And that is my consistent thing. And even if I have completely inconsistent days otherwise, like I have no idea what my tour schedule is or how to work around, as long as I keep those things going, I can do it. So an average day, I've started waking up earlier. I used to think, I was like, yeah, I'm a tour guide, I can sleep in. Up at 7 every day, But I make time for myself throughout the day, read at the beginning of the day, make myself breakfast, that always get home. And so it's, even if you have your own job, like be a good boss to yourself. Like don't exploit yourself. Don't think that you're escaping a normal job to because now you can exploit yourself as much as you want to, because that's what will happen. You still got to be fair and kind to yourself as if you were your own employer. So that's the most important thing I could say about your daily schedule.
That's really cool.
My final question is bringing back young people, right?
Yeah.
I think we often talk about this crisis that young people face, and we talk about it so much that I think it's actually disheartening at some point.
Yeah.
And it also brings about such a narrative. I'm a big fan of numbers.
Yeah.
So I look at the statistics from South Africa, and it's so interesting that if you look at the unemployment rate after someone has a bachelor's degree, it's 4% actually.
Yeah.
But if you go below, if you don't have a bachelor's degree
Yeah.
and then you go low, then that's
It's
when the
massive.
numbers becomes crazy. So it's kind of this narrative that get a formal job. There are formal jobs, formal aspects, but beyond that, there's
Nothing. Yeah.
there's nothing in a way, right? So young people that want to enter the space, A, can they to you and talk to you, right?
Yeah, of course.
B, what what do you think is that aspect that can allow them to go to your field without really going formal training as such? Is it a library card?
Yes. Yeah, let's plug libraries here. Definitely. I think that more than ever, like I was joking with a friend the other day that, Ludditism, which is what people are talking about AI with regards to today, which is that idea of like 200 years ago, weaving machines came in, put many weavers out of work. So some weavers got together and destroyed the machines, thinking they'd get their job back. And so whenever we talk about anti-technology, it's like, oh, you're being a Luddite, you're doing it. And it's like, for me, it's like sometimes Ludditism is justified if the technology is not actually doing anything that truly new, or is that like, or it's taking away from something that could be just as valuable. At the same time, I understand the point of Ludditism, which is that idea of you've got to adapt to the world. You've got to find your way to exist in the world and use the new tools at your disposal. And I think for me, like the point is like libraries are not outmoded. As I said earlier, you will find so many more valuable things in libraries than you ever expected or ever thought you could find on the internet even. And like that is public resources. It's available for you to go when you want to. Like we take these for granted. Like this joke of like if someone suggested libraries today to like people on the far right running America or that, they would say, oh, this is a utopian idea. That like who's going to pay for it? Whatever. Is it worth the investment? Whatever. It's like yeah, these things are worth the investment in a general sense of like it's not a metric value that you rarely understand. And I think one of the things which I think people aren't aware about with regards to apartheid and its role in South African history is that fundamentally Black people and many non-white people throughout the apartheid era were trained for jobs that they thought were always going to be there, which was laboring jobs in one way or another as for Vut or DF
Coal mining as well, right?
Yeah,
now.
exactly. So there was a deep sense of South Africa as being not a stagnant society, but one in which like the class system was justified to always be a place for everyone. And the irony in our country is that the end of apartheid came with the end of that economy as well. And there are people who are nostalgic for apartheid because that there were more certainties of the future in that way. And it's like, well, that's wrong on two ways. Firstly, apartheid was awful. Secondly, like they was going to collapse anyway because the world economy has changed so much. So and I think the sad thing for me is that many young South Africans don't see how liberating education can be and how much they're still stuck in a kind of self-imposed apartheid thinking by thinking that the only jobs are any place for them in the economy. And the thing is either in laboring jobs, slightly skilled jobs, whatever. Like, I think that still persists for a lot of young people, and that because they don't know how to imagine themselves being greater than what was promised to their parents, promised to them, and they think of education itself as being not, still a residual tool of colonialism rather than a tool of liberation for everyone, We've still got to change that mindset in South Africa, and we don't realize how inset it is, I think. So that educate yourself and use what's there at your disposal. Everyone starts with free libraries. Like, just everyone starts at the bottom. If they're of a certain class, like economically, everyone starts with like a clerk job or a kind of high school job or whatever. When it comes to knowledge and resources and that, everyone starts with the resources that are publicly available. So take advantage of those as much as you can. So that's what I would say. You don't realize how much is there and how much is freely available until you actually look for it.
I know I said last question, and I'm sure we'll end the podcast now, but I think there is also this aspect about something I struggle with very openly is instant gratification.
Yeah.
Because you read a page and you won't get gratification. You won't get someone come back to you and go like, oh, hey, good job. I think when you put a post out and you get an Instagram, if someone likes it,
Yeah.
that's gratification.
Yeah.
And that's
Or
what
not. Don't like it.
or not if they don't like
Which
it.
often happens.
Which often happens. And that's where the challenge, I think, our parents and our people and didn't get that. So they
Yeah.
just knew that aspect of just put your head down
Yeah.
and do the work, and that reward will come in.
Yeah.
Like I was in this Atomic Habits book recently, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it said that this guy entered a banking job. He was a salesman. And what he did was he put two pots, and every day he basically had, what are those things called? Paper clips in one pot. Every day he would make a call and he would move that pot, that pin.
Yeah.
That's all he did. He just kept calling. He just kept calling.
Until he had this physical object that he was happy with completing, you know.
Happy with completing, and that led to so many promotions that the CEO think of that bank, etc., etc. And that's where the hardest part is.
Yeah.
It's the reward that you don't get.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
I think I think about it again. The metaphor has to be exercise. It has to be the thing of like we have culture. We can understand how like going to the gym or doing weights or whatever will build muscle strength from that. And I find it sad that I think it can be reversed, but I think that we don't know how to recontextualize, reframe that way of thinking for intellectual exercise. Like the thing is like reading fundamentally exercising that muscle, and you will what you'll get back from it is the same as you get from eating salad, or like, you know what I mean, to eat, and you have to take in media, you don't realize that you have to until you try not to, and so rather have the thing you're eating or the exercise, the thing you're doing with your body, be valuable. And that can be small things, that can be whatever, but like you have to have a space for value in that, and you just have to recast it as freedom, as like this is how I'm free, because I think people feel like they're free of getting more reassurance or approval for their posts, for enjoying this TikTok or that slightly more, but it's like you have to change your idea of what it means to be a free person. Being a free person for me means like having another story ongoing in your head of like, oh, I'm reading that book or that thing, or I'm like building my of this thing, and that, yeah. So casting it as being like empowering in more ways than just making you smarter, because people think like, oh, I can get smarter by reading this Wikipedia article or whatever, So yeah, that's the thing for me, is the gratification. We know how to feel gratified in some things, and we just need to move that way of thinking to others. And yeah, whatever habits, like the Atomic Habits, help you do that. Valuable, fantastic, I back that. But that, like, you have to have a kind of conversation with yourself, saying like, this is not for what other people think of me. It's for me to know, like, to have my own thing. It's for me to look in the mirror and see that I have a great body, like, which I don't. But same thing with your brain. It's like, can I look in the mirror and say like I know this subject, I know this thing very well, And also I think exams are wrong. Like we often, education teaches us like we only have to know enough to pass an exam or to get through or to qualify. And it's like no, that should be the beginning of learning. That's not the end, To finish off, last thing is like for example, I'm going to Shakespeare, and I find it the worst thing that happened to Shakespeare is the way in which he's made this unbearable thing to read. When you're like Shakespeare can be such a great person in people's lives. He's so fun, so intelligent, so interesting, so absorbing, so forth. But almost everyone gets off from that, from 1617. It's like, that's fine. Most people should be turned off. It's not for everyone, but you have to understand, like, it's good for a reason, and have a leap of faith to be like okay, if I have a personal relationship thing, I will. Why? Like everyone said it, no matter what school they go to, from when they're in grade 11, grade 12, So yeah, find your version of falling in love with Shakespeare. Basically, that would be I would end on.
That's actually a really good analogy, because as Shakespeare is one of those things we don't. I mean, I enjoy reading it, and he's like, "What is this?"
Exactly. Well, you're a numbers guy more, I suppose.
Saleha, what's the biggest takeaway for you from this conversation?
Wow, biggest takeaway would probably be find your passion and stick with it. persevere and yeah, make sure that it's something that fits with who you are, instead of trying to force it because you feel like you need to.
I think, Cameron, just in summary, this has been such an insightful conversation.
Thank you.
I've learned so much from you. And I always say that I learned so much from talking to people. It's amazing. Like, people are just doing amazing things. And thank you so much just for coming, and
Yeah.
thank you for everything. I think my biggest takeaway is doing the boring stuff every day. I put boring in quotes because it can just seem so difficult to just show up.
Yes. Yeah.
I know that I don't show up every day, and those are for various reasons. I think I show up for work, but I don't show up for the things that I'm passionate about,
yourself.
which is
Yeah.
for myself. Other things that feed my soul. My work feeds my soul, but there are other things that feeds my soul as well, and I'm not able to it. So I got a very big push that, you know what, just show up. So that was really big. I hope our listeners found that helpful.
Yeah. Thank
Let's do this every week, and then you'll show up every week.
Right?
Exactly.
So this was Cameron Peters, everyone. You can find him on at Cape Town Heritage Tours on Instagram. He is happy to chat with you if you would like. Is there anything you would like to add?
And yeah, please reach out. I feel like I'm like the kind of cool teacher who wants to hang out with people after class and like.
Not to toot your own horn or anything, but
Well, I hope so. I don't know. Well, I like being a young person doing this job because it's nice to like do something that. I think that's the point. It's like, don't be afraid of doing a job that doesn't feel like it's for your age bracket or your gender or your whatever. And I think because often like we talk about sexism and patriarchy and whatever, and like it's true, but also people internalize these things, you know. So see, if you love something, don't be afraid of being the weird one doing it, because I am the weird doing history tours. I'm 29 and almost everyone else does over 50, you know. So yeah, but it's to be that person, because
Yes.
everyone else in that profession will appreciate you. So yeah, enjoy being the weird one in the profession and being weird about the passion you have, you know.
it's underrated. Being weird is underrated. All right, that's our podcast for today. Thank you so much, everyone, and we will see you in the next one. Asambe.